Today is February 15, 2015, and our loving government has decided that we need to have genetically modified apples because all these other GMO items aren't enough. We have to make sure that every single possible thing that we can eat can potentially kill us over the long run. So this article is titled USDA approves first GMO apple for planting, part of speedy GMO approval process. And I also have a news clip that is about this that will show you how much they are normalizing the fact that we are eating GMOs and don't get to know about it. Now, a quick point I want to make is I remember growing up, we would always hear how other countries would approve certain things, and then we would hear either the USDA or the FDA would not approve of it, therefore we were not allowed to have it, and we were told this was in our best interest or it was for our safety, fill in the blank, you name it. We have a total 180 now. The whole world bans certain items, but the USDA approves them and tells us it's safe, even though the whole world says otherwise. Adding another genetically modified food to the growing list of biotech creations, the USDA has now approved the first GMO apple for commercial planting inside the United States. Slated for your dinner table, the new GMO apple is reportedly resistant to turning brown when sliced or bruised. Oh, yeah, because we have to completely modify our food because it turns a certain color, which proves to you it's natural. The apple turning brown is a very natural thing. It shows you that it's in a process of decay, which means it's alive. These things that they are developing that don't show natural things, that shows decaying, proves that it's not real, that they're fake. That's why they call it Frankenfoods. Coming just months after the USDA approved the first genetically modified potato, and I made a video on that, I'll link to it in the description. The news reminds us of the USDA's declaration to give Monsanto and other biotech organizations speedy approval when it comes to approving genetically modified foods. In other words, less testing and more rubber stamping. Now, you see how this works? We hear about fast tracking, we hear about speedy approval, we hear about Congress and the Senate not reading bills and only having a thumbs up or thumbs down vote. If you want to know that something is evil, just see how they are going through the process of approving it. If it's speedy approval or fast tracking, that means they don't want us knowing about it. That means you should be against it. So anything that is not discussed at length and that is passed, you should stay away from. According to the New York Times, the USDA considered the issues over the new GMO apple, which included intense opposition. The Department of Agriculture, which approved the apples for commercial planting, said on Friday that they had considered these issues. I highly doubt it because the USDA is a paid-off corporation. However, it said under that law, approval is based on whether a genetically modified crop poses a threat to other plants. The department determined that the apples pose no such risk. The so-called Arctic apples, which will be available in the Granny Smith and Golden Delicious varieties, are genetically engineered in a way to suppress the production of an enzyme that causes browning when cells in the apple are injured from slicing, for example. In other words, they're taking away the natural component from the apple and they're making it into something that is not actually food. The good news, you may actually be able to identify these GMO apples by their sale name, Arctic, or perhaps an FDA-approved label that they are considered non-browning, an indicator that we have not yet seen with genetically modified foods, and for good reason. After all, no one would actually purchase GMO foods, including new GMO apples, if they carried an appropriate label. Why do you think over 96% of Monsanto's shareholders are against GMO labeling? This news comes as both a surprise and an expected announcement. As the USDA continues to roll through GMO products into the dining rooms of consumers nationwide, it's less and less a shock as every staple of food becomes modified by mega biotech. And the time is now to demand real testing and action, or at least answers as to why the U.S. State Department is paying for Monsanto's marketing materials like DVDs and threatening other countries who reject their GMO crops. Would you eat a GMO apple? Absolutely not. I refuse to partake in this GMO garbage. Now, obviously, I've eaten it, and I'll eat it in the future because there's just some things that I don't want to give up, but I'm not going to eat the GMO corn. I'm not eating the GMO apples. I'm not eating the GMO potatoes. I'm not eating the GMO soy. Am I going to have a Snickers bar every now and then? Yeah, I guess I will. But these things that are blatantly GMOs, like the corn, for example, I stay the hell away from, because in my opinion, the GMO corn is by far the most dangerous item we have in our grocery stores. And the problem with that is that corn is in everything, probably in that Snickers bar as well. But I say I'd rather have a little bit of it in a Snickers bar than just eat the whole thing by itself. And I know I shouldn't eat certain things, but you know what? You can't be perfect, and it's hard to stay away from certain types of foods, but at least know what you're eating. And here's the news clip that normalizes GMOs in our homes.
The government has given a green light to a special kind of genetically modified apple. The apples are modified to resist turning brown after they are bruised or sliced. Small quantities of the apples are expected to be available late next year. It takes apple trees several years to produce significant quantities, so it will take some time before the genetically modified apples are widely distributed.